Hi guys, Whitney here, and coming up is an interview Dan and I had with Jeff Kramer, the voice actor for Special Agent Francis York Morgan, during my 24-hour Deadly Premonition Charity stream over the weekend. Jeff was amazing, and I couldn't believe how long he stayed on during my stream. We covered a lot of things and even got a little bit of insight into the upcoming sequel for Deadly Premonition. Man, I thought I was excited before, and after talking to Jeff, well, let's just say my excitement is now way off the charts. I hope you guys enjoy. Jeff, thank you so much for joining my stream, everybody. This is Jeff Kramer. He voices Special Agent Francis York Morgan. He does a wonderful job. Yes.
Hi, Jeff.
Oh, that's my sister.
Oh,
I'm so glad you can make it.
sure. Have you stayed up all night yet?
No, I started 2 hours ago.
Oh, okay.
And then I'll be punchy in about 10-15 hours. But I'm pretty well here. I just got started. I'm in chapter 2. Yeah. Oh, shit. Let me pause. So, it's been almost a decade since you've voiced this character. You have any fond memories of working with Swery or the team?
Oh, yeah. Well, they were great. The interesting thing was when I did the first volume of Deadly Premonition, he spoke pretty much no English at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything he said had to be translated. And by the time we started this project last year, he was pretty fluent in English. So
oh,
he
that's
was there
great.
in the studio with me and was able to pretty much tell me everything he wanted.
What I find really interesting is you've only done a few voice acting gigs. I think the other famous one I know is of Seaman. What got you kind of started in doing voice acting from the get-go?
Well, I've been doing voice acting for probably 20 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of educational games, and I'm, a voice or two or three in probably 100 other games.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the main character, but playing 3 or 4 other characters. So I got started doing it pretty much because someone had seen me doing improv and saw me play a bunch of different characters and said, hey, I work for an educational software company and we're working on a game. Can you come and read for this game? So I went and auditioned just like you would for any part, and they liked it, and I wound up doing it. And then through that game, I met a bunch of other people that were in the industry, and they started to hire me for other things as well.
That's so cool. Now you have started an improv company here in San Jose. Now, did they just reach out to you again to do York? Were you happy to return for the sequel, or?
Oh yeah, I had almost forgotten about the game, and then I had become Facebook friends with Swery a few years ago, and so he contacted me through Facebook and said they might be doing a sequel. That was about 2 years ago, and then I didn't hear back from them for a while, and then all of a sudden last year they said, "All right, it's written, it's done. So can you come in and do it?" So the first Deadly Premonition we recorded in Palo Alto.
Yeah.
This one I had to go down to LA to record because they were in a studio down there.
Yeah, I read in the post-mortem, they said that the voice acting was done only in 2 weeks, and you had a ton of lines to read. That was really intense. Were you by yourself in the booth, just doing all your lines, or did you actually play off of some of the other characters?
No, it was just me both times. It's rare when you're doing a game where you actually are in the booth with anybody else. Every once in a while, they'll bring in another character to work with you, but for the most part, you're there yourself. So for some of the lines, they would play me what some of the characters said if it was a cue for me. And so I'd hear it, but it had been recorded at another time. So then I'd hear it and then just go off of that. But for the most part, you don't see the other person, and a lot of times you don't even hear the other person. You just have to do it as if you are in a conversation with somebody.
Okay. Did you have any idea, like, of the what York looked like, or even the entire story, or were you just given the script and no background for who you're
No, they
playing?
gave me, well, I never saw the entire script
Mm.
either time. You're just giving your lines.
Mm.
And so, which is enough with York. There were a lot of lines.
Yeah.
And so the first time it was on paper, by the time we did the second one, everything in the studio was digitized. So I was just reading off of a monitor and I'd see the lines on a monitor and just read it from there.
Yeah. What I really liked about your performance with York is you do end up playing two different people. You play York and Zach, and what I found really cool is when you're actually playing Zach in the last chapter, you actually have different. You sound different than York. He sounds a lot softer, a little bit more childlike. I was wondering if you were given any sort of direction to go that route, or was it something you just came up on your own?
Well, it was both. That's what I love about doing voice acting is that you're in the studio with sometimes with just the director. In this case, I was very lucky to have a really great director in LA, but Swery was in the booth as well, or not in the booth, but he was on the other side of the glass. So
Mm-hmm.
he would talk for a little bit, and the director knew how to work with me to try and change my voice a little bit. He'd say, let's do this character, and he's a little younger, a little softer, and so I would try it a couple of different ways until Swery would hear something that sounded like the voice that he had in his head too.
I heard he
um,
used like music as a way to kind of direct this kind of sound he wanted. Did he do that with York as well?
a little bit. I was fortunate that I had some pictures to go on as well.
Mm.
uh, that's one of the things that was interesting was he could tell me, I knew the story of what happened, but I didn't really know what was going on until we got further into the story, because we were just under a time deadline. So,
Yeah.
for instance, last year when I was doing the recording for this, we were in the studio, oh, at least 6 hours a day.
Oh wow.
And so, because there were so many lines they needed to record, and then when I was done, they were bringing in the next person. So I was there, like a Monday through Thursday, and then Friday, another person came in to do their part. So we're just recording and recording and recording. But, every once in a while, I would say, well, what's happening here in the story?
Hmm.
And at one point, I asked Swery, I, did I, is this what's happening here? Or where is this leading to? And so it was fun working with him. He waited until I was about halfway through before he told me where it was going and what
Hmm.
the ending was going to be, and showed me some pictures. And so that helped when we got to the ending. I
Yeah.
knew what was going on at that point.
So have you actually seen the entire game, or do you just know what happens?
No, I actually have not seen Deadly Premonition 2 yet. I mean, I know
No,
what
I'm
happened.
sorry. I'm sorry. Deadly Premonition I.
Yes.
You-
So yeah, that was the first one I saw. And then what was interesting was, after I recorded it, it usually takes anywhere from 6 months to a year between the time you finish recording and the time the game comes out.
Mhm.
So the first one, I didn't even know it had come out yet. Someone
Yeah.
just told me, or I saw it online. And,
It's when
it was
you.
interesting because that game apparently has set a record for the widest distribution of
Yes.
reviews as far as how people saw it.
Hmm.
Somebody told me that there's
You
a,
either love it or you hate it.
yeah, and apparently that was the first game that ever ran the gamut between a great review and a horrible review within the major gaming reviewers.
Yeah, that's what
One of them, it
put
was
it on the map.
really interesting.
We have to thank Jim Sterling for giving it a 10 to offset the IGN too. I mean,
Yeah.
uh, oh,
In
did you?
fact, it was the site I read for Game Critics. It was Game Critics' Game of the Year when it first came out.
Oh yeah, that's what was interesting was that it ran the gamut from, this is the game of the year. Someone else had written something about this particular character of York. that they found it, on the same level as the snake character.
Oh yeah,
What, from Metal Gear?
Metal Gear.
Oh.
Yeah. And so, some people painting the work that I did in that extreme, and then you had other people saying this is the worst thing I've ever seen, and it's terrible, and the voice acting is awful, and don't play this game.
It's funny. I see more people praising the voice. The voice acting is one of the highlights of the game for a lot of people. Personally, I was, when I first started playing the game, I was surprised at how well voice acting it was compared to some of the other games around at the time. Like, I thought York sounded amazing, and people who say the voice acting suck are just crazy. But we do have a question in the chat. Agent Fink asked, "Did you improv any of the lines in the game?"
No, this is the one time where you can't improvise because they have a very specific set of lines, and it also times out through the gameplay as well. So there's some times where they'll say you need to pick up the pace a little bit because it has to match what the characters are doing and saying at the time. So there's really not a lot of room for improv in this. The only place where the improv comes in is when you're developing the character. The improv training is really great because I'm used to doing a lot of different voices and knowing how to change my voice for different characters. So, it helps me when I'm in the audition process, and when I first go in there and they say, this is the sort of voice we're looking for, I can improvise a little bit in that process. But then once we get into it, it's very clear what they want. In fact, for Deadly Premonition II, it had been so many years since I had done the voice, I had forgotten exactly how I did it. So they had to play probably about 2 or 3 minutes of my voice back to me so I could just kind of hear it and recreate it.
Was it kind of like riding a bike? Once you heard it again, you're like, oh, okay, yeah. Or was
it took a few minutes, but then you kind of get in a groove and you settle into it, and they say, all right, that's it. And then every once in a while, the director will say, you're coming up a little bit, in pitch or something like that. Let's drop it back down and get into that sweet spot again.
Did you see the trailer that they released back in September for Deadly Premonition 2 during Nintendo Direct? That was a big.
Actually, Swery sent me the link to it when it was coming out. So it's been delayed for quite a while. I mean, originally it was supposed to have come out last April or May.
Really?
Wow.
In fact, there was a game conference in San Francisco in March that Swery was coming out for, and I was supposed to, be there with him to help introduce the game.
Oh no, that would have been awesome.
Everything got delayed, and so they had to push it back. But I still got to go up there and hang out with Swery for a couple of days in San Francisco. He came out for the convention anyway.
Yeah.
They had to push back the official announcement about it for a while.
Was it tempting for you? Was it frustrating for you at all not being able to tell anyone that Deadly Premonition 2 was happening? Like, how aware are you day to day of what a crazy fan base this thing has? Because it sounds like for a year you had this piece of information for 2 years.
Yeah,
people would go nuts for it, and you weren't allowed to tell anyone.
Exactly. Actually, it was kind of fun. I mean, if you've ever had, just a secret that you wanted to share with people, but there's some sort of fun in being in on it, that you're one of very, very few people that know what's happening and what's going on. So it was actually kind of fun to not tell people about it, but just know it was going on.
It was such a surprise. Like, I knew that there's probably something that was going to be announced at Nintendo Direct because someone had tweeted at Jim Sterling that's something you'd want. I'm like, okay, they're going to release the game on Switch. When that trailer dropped, I was at work. I couldn't scream or anything, but I was just like, oh my God, a sequel to the... I didn't think it would be possible. I gave up hope of there ever being a sequel to this game. And I had everyone like blowing up my phone, going, Winnie, turn on Nintendo Direct! Deadly Premonition 2!
A few years ago, they released a board game, Deadly Premonition. Board
you did
game.
The trailer for that too. Yeah, I was very excited.
They called me for that, and that was, and that's kind of fun too because that was being done in Australia, and so it was, doing some recording actually just here, just a very short recording here, and then just sending it on to them.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. We have another question. Johnny was wondering, you kind of already kind of spoke about getting back into York's character. You found it pretty easy to get back into that voice again, right? It just took like a couple minutes and a retry.
Yeah,
the
they
voice,
played it
yeah.
back for me in the booth. I had headphones on, and they said, here you are from Deadly Premonition I, and played a bunch of lines for me. And then they said, all right, listen to the line and then say it back again. And so it took a few tries to get back into it, but that's how we did it. I'd hear it in the headphones, and then they'd say, all right, now just repeat it back.
Now, out of all your voice work, what's your favorite? Who's your favorite character to play?
Well, this is one of the favorites. Seaman was great too.
Seaman was so strange.
Yeah, it was really, really strange recording it. And, that actually took longer than this game. Seaman took a month to record.
Really?
There were, I want to say, over 10,000 lines of dialogue.
Oh, wow.
That had to be recorded.
I had no idea. I mean, I didn't have a Dreamcast, so I didn't play Seaman, but I didn't realize there was that many lines. Because this game has a ton too, but whoa.
Yeah. Well, the Seaman didn't really tell as much of a story as this one did. Seaman was just, you had to record so many different things depending on what questions people asked you.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had something for almost anything anyone would ask you. And so that just took a long, long time. And but it was fun just seeing the reaction that people had. And then I found out years after the game came out that some people were making YouTube videos of just asking weird questions to Seaman and putting it on. So it kind of gave Seaman another bump in popularity because, when the game first came out, there was no YouTube. And so it just gave it another bump for a while, even though the Dreamcast is gone.
Yeah.
We've got a question from Regulus Pastor, who is asking, when you're finding the voice, what are the big difference between doing 2005 York and 2019 Zach?
Well, this was interesting, and what I found most interesting about the game was that, it's the time jumps that are in this game. So that's what made it interesting. And I don't know if I should say too much without giving things away. Should
we don't actually know a lot about the game. All we know is that there's a section in 2005 and then there's 2019. And that's pretty much all we know. We know that there's York, and the trailer kind of showed Zach. Well, what we assumed is Zach. In the future,
there's that, but then you're going to see a couple of different versions of York on this without giving anything else away.
My god, I hope we see punk rock! Please, punk rock York!
You've made her year. You have no idea.
Oh my gosh, that's gonna be so cool. Well, we don't know for sure yet, but oh man, I'm so excited because I've always it's been 9 years and it's like I wanted more York, and when I heard that there might be a sequel, I'm like, well, York's not gonna be there. But now with this being both a prequel and a sequel, it's like the best of both worlds.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So now that you know that, I can confirm that it is in essence a prequel and a sequel to it. And so that's what made it really interesting going into the studio is, recreating the voice from, York's time period, and then doing the prequel kind of voice, and then doing the sequel voice. And there are variations on all of them.
Yeah. Oh, man. I am just so excited. I can't believe it was delayed. Wow. I wonder why they delayed it.
I'm sure it had to do with the rendering. Like the pictures that I saw that Swery showed me were just insane. And so I knew it was going to take a while to render everything. And then, it's a long process for all of this. First, they have to do work just on the vocal files, and clean those up. And then they have to get everything to match with the action that's happening. And I'm sure all the animation takes a while as well. The first game actually took even longer than it should have because I had recorded the entire game and then they ran into some issues with the producers of Twin Peaks.
Oh, that really did happen. That was just my assumption.
No, the original title.
At the beginning of the stream, we had a long conversation.
Yeah.
We had a long conversation about just how much
Rainy Woods,
because of legal issues. And
right,
finally we have someone who can answer that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was Rainy Woods originally, and then I had recorded the whole thing, and then they called me a while later and said, we have to change the game title and we have to change the name of the character.
Yeah, it was David Young Henning, and he had an imaginary friend.
Zeter, I think.
Zeter, that's it. Yeah. Because I was some of the voice files. There's still some old Rainy Wood ones in there, and I was like, Zeter. Oh, okay. Yeah. I like York and Zach better.
Yeah, it rolls off the tongue a little better too. But I had recorded it all. I don't know. It'd probably been a year, and I hadn't heard anything about the game. And then they contacted me and said, "Here's what's going on, and we need you to come back in the studio and re-record every line where you say either your name or Zeter's name,
or the town name."
Yeah.
So it was probably half of my lines had references to that. You know how many times he says his name?
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
So we had to re-record all of that all over again. So it pushed the game out, another year, the first one.
Yeah, because it was announced in 2007, and then it got canceled, and they had to start redoing it in 2009. This game was in production for like 6 years. It was supposed to come out on PS2 at first, and then all this legal problems. It's amazing it even came out at all, but I do prefer the reskinned, renamed version over the original Rainy Woods. I think it has more personality. Well. York looks cooler. David Young Henning, I guess, was okay, but York is just more. He stands out more compared. David Young Henning kind of seemed generic.
About change-wise, and we discussed this a little while ago on the stream, was we were sad that George got a lot uglier.
Yeah, George is hot in Rainy Woods. And then they're like, nope, not anymore.
Well, and it's funny that the voice actor is actually a friend of mine who played George, and he's a good-looking guy too. So he's going to be upset that he saw that too.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So I have a question just about that. And
sure.
Did you know just one of the actors? Do you know more of the actors who worked on it?
A few of the original actors. Now, I don't know how many of them they brought in for the second one.
Right.
But Casey Robertson was an old friend of mine, and we've done improv together, and he's brilliant. I think he was George in the
he's George.
The first game. And I'm trying to remember the names of some of the other characters, but I don't think a lot of the people that I worked with in Deadly Premonition I were involved in Deadly Premonition II.
Which wouldn't be surprising because, given where it comes from. Oh, Rebecca Wink is Emily.
Yeah, and Rebecca's great too. So she actually moved down to LA while we were recording, either just before or just after we recorded Deadly Premonition I. She actually moved down to LA anyway. And I think when they went to do Deadly Premonition 2, they just used a lot of LA-based actors because they were recording in LA. And so it was, it would have been very expensive to fly everybody down to LA. They did it for me because they wanted to have the same voice again, but
yeah. Oh, Fraud wants to know, do you know Christopher Sullivan? I think that's Thomas, right?
I think so. Yeah, I didn't know him before we started. So, and with some people, even with Casey, who I knew, I never saw Casey while we were recording. We weren't ever called into the studio at the same time, so we came in at different times to record everything.
And
now I'm going to have to go with the big question, and it's a question that if you don't feel like you're comfortable answering it, feel free to not just avoid it. But you are the first person we've talked to who saw all of the lines in the first version Rainy Woods script and went back and recorded everything else. So can you tell us, were there any major changes to the story, or was it just the cosmetic,
The
changing
surface
character
level.
name, changing the town name?
I'm pretty sure it didn't affect the story at all. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure it was just, it was too close to
Twin
references
Peaks.
from Twin Peaks, and so they wanted them to just change that part of it. But I don't think they could make them change the story of the game, because the story doesn't really have much to do with any of the storylines from Twin Peaks. It has
No.
the same kind of eerie sense.
It has a setup is similar, but it's completely different.
Yeah, so they didn't have to change the storyline at all, but they wanted them to change, character names and references like that. And,
Okay.
so
even though there were originally 2 little people and it got replaced by 2 angels, that was just cosmetic. There's no change in how you interacted.
No.
Oh.
Okay. Though, I mean, it kind of makes you wonder, like, how different interacting with the little twin angel boys versus, like, were there 2 guys in the town of Greenville and not 2 little kids that you can interact with? I mean, there's that difference too. Because the whole thing was the angels look just like the twin little boys, but in Rainy Woods, it was 2 older guys, or there 2 older guys in the town. I mean, that could have been a difference. Yeah.
Well, and part of it, now I'm not sure, but part of it also may have been just Swery, when he had to go back in and change, some lines anyway. He may have decided while he was going back to make some adjustments to things too. If you create something, you're never satisfied with the final product. You're always tinkering with it. But this one, I enjoyed the first game, just the ending and how it worked. This one is on another level.
The second one? I can't wait.
I'm not going to give anything away, but he has completely outdone himself.
Oh, that is so exciting. Oh, we have another question. Zero Brightness. They are a podcast I listen to. They're really good. Since Zach and York love B horror so much, what is your favorite B horror movie?
What's interesting about that is I'm not a fan of horror movies. In fact, my wife and my stepson just went to one last night. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It just came out, and it's a Korean horror film.
Oh,
Parasite?
Yeah, Parasite.
Yeah. So they went to see that, and while they were seeing that, I was seeing Rise of Skywalker, because I can't sit through movies like that. I can see, classic older ones, like Psycho and things like that, but ones where things are just, jumping out at you and psychological stuff, it's just that's not my favorite genre.
Were you able to watch the scenes in this game that were kind of like gory? Like some of the deaths are kind of brutal in here.
Yeah, well, it's different when you're inside of it and you know what's happening. That's the thing. I know what things are coming up, and I've been told, some of these things, but yeah, it's difficult for me to watch a movie where I don't know what's happening and when something's getting ready to jump out at me.
Yeah.
So you can confirm, and I think we were going to save this question for the end, but since you brought it up, you can confirm that we're going to be 100% satisfied with Deadly Premonition 2?
I don't think you can guarantee that, but it sounds like it's pretty great.
Yeah, I just, for me, when he was showing me pictures and telling me as we got to the end what happens at the end, it just floored me.
God, I can't wait.
Yeah.
You're teasing us so expertly, Bravo.
I am so excited for this sequel. Oh man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, and this is the thing for you, I mean, it must have been a surprise to come back. And like, what did that feel like? Because you said you didn't play the game. I mean, you don't get really into the fandom stuff around the game. So what was the experience like of finding out that you were going to be coming back to this character this many years later?
Well, it's for a voice actor, that's always a great challenge to be able to say, they enjoyed this so much, they want to bring it back and they want to give you more to do. Especially if it's in a different way. This wasn't just York going off on another adventure. It was very, very different, and just a different way to take the character in another direction. And so that's what I enjoyed most about it. And you'll see that when you play it. You'll understand what I mean when I say that the challenge, it challenged me even more as a voice actor to be able to not just go in and say, do the same thing you did before. We're just substituting different lines and it's a different situation, and just do what you did before. So that's what was great for me, was that it was very, very challenging, and it pushed me a lot. And so I'm hoping that everybody enjoys that and just sees it. But that's all from Swery, just what he came up with and the concept, and this idea of it being a prequel and a sequel. I think people are really going to get into it.
Yeah, I was pretty excited. I mean, they've just re-released it on Switch, and there's a lot of newer fans coming into the game, and it seems like so many people, that was like their game for Nintendo Direct was, oh my god, it's Deadly Premonition 2. Like, people could not believe it. It was just, that was all anybody was talking about. Like, I was really surprised, given that for years it felt like I was alone in terms of like loving this game. But after that announcement, like, people just came out of the woodwork, and how their excitement for this sequel. It's just great to hear it's so good.
Yeah, I think they're also just taking advantage of the jump in technology too, between the 2007 and now, the different platforms and the speed that they have and the processing speed. I think they're taking advantage of that too. So I think the gameplay will be more exciting as well.
Have you kept up with Swery's other games that he's put out? Like, he's put out The Missing most recently.
Yeah. He's
That's
won
a
a
really
lot
good
of awards for The Missing.
Oh, it's a great game.
And I wouldn't be surprised if he won a bunch of awards for this one too.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. I'm really excited for the one he's kickstarted, The Good Life. That looks really good. It's a murder mystery in England, so that actually looks pretty good too.
Yeah, he's always working on something.
I know.
Working on Deadly Premonition, that was done, and he was showing me some drawings for another thing he was working on, at the time. So,
and now he's teaming up with Silent Hill. Oh my god, I just lost his name. Kiichiro Toyama and oh shit, who's the other guy? He's
Suda
like
51?
Yeah, so he's doing like another game with them. It's just like, this guy doesn't stop.
Yeah, he's just a really interesting guy, and it was fun to hang out with him too. The first time I didn't get a chance to hang out with him too much because he didn't speak English, and I don't speak Japanese, and so a lot of it was just through interpreters. And we went out for lunch a couple of times while we were recording Deadly Premonition I, but there was a language barrier for both of us, so we really didn't get to know each other that well. This time it was really interesting because we got to hang out for probably about a week, because I had to go down there twice to record. And so we really got to hang out, and then he was up in San Francisco, as I said, in March. And so it was nice just getting to know him a little more.
He's a really fun guy. I like how friendly he is with the fans. He like follows everybody back on Twitter, and he's very approachable in spite of like English not being his first language. He still really tries to communicate as well as he can. He's like a really sweet dev.
He's very comfortable, and is especially in all the travel that he does. There's no way I would be that comfortable if I was suddenly called to Japan and said, go do a lot of appearances in Japan. I would not be nearly as comfortable as he seems to be when he's around people.
Oh, we have another question. Do you have this is from Agent Fink. Do you have a fave line from the first game that you had a lot of fun with?
Oh, a favorite line?
Mm-hmm.
Not that I remember. There were he didn't really have it's not like there was a catchphrase or something like that, apart from him saying his name over and over again.
Oh, and FK in the coffee.
Yes, exactly. But a lot of that was, from Twin Peaks. And, I was a big Twin Peaks fan when it came out. So that was just kind of fun for me to try and recreate that feeling and those moments. But I can tell you that my favorite moment from Deadly Premonition I was the transition of, going from York to Zach and having Zach come out.
Mm-hmm. That scene was
and-
very shocking. The first time you see it, you're like, wait, what? Zach? I thought Zach was me. What's going on?
Well, and you can imagine that's what I was saying when I was reading it too. I mean, before we started running and recording it, they handed it to me and said, okay, read this scene. And I, first was reading ahead a little bit and then had to stop and say, wait, is this what I think it means? And I remember them translating into Japanese and Swery just smiling and nodding his head. And I just said, wow.
That's the exact effect he was hoping.
Yeah.
I just, it was kind of mind blowing. And then saying, all right, well, let's see if I can make that happen now, acting wise. Because I didn't see that coming at all.
A lot of people didn't.
No one did.
Yeah.
The biggest thing, people are like, who is Zach? Well, is he just crazy? What's going on? And then they get to the end, they're like, oh, we've been Zach the entire time. This is, York is the imaginary friend.
Yeah, well, it was kind of, like an M. Night Shyamalan moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where it was like, I okay, now I know why he sees dead people. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, Zero Brightness wants to know, what is something you're totally nerdy about, like, York? Any weird obsessions, collections?
Well, for me, it's probably baseball trivia.
Mm. So you're like the Yorka's IMDb in the flesh. Your baseball trivia in the flesh.
Yeah. So I can talk for hours about baseball in the same way that York can talk for hours and hours about movies.
What's your favorite team?
Well, I grew up in New York, so I've been a Yankees fan my whole life. But when I came out to California, I started going to Giants games and A's games. So, if you're a baseball fan, you'll go and see baseball wherever you are.
Oh, Sergeant Kirby says, do you like all the silly movie lines? Like, have you seen some of the movies that York mentions during the driving conversations?
Yeah, I'd actually seen almost all of the ones that he had talked about in there too. So that was actually one of the hardest parts of voicing that, was trying to, make it seem like it was just normal conversation for him that he would get into it, whereas I don't see it exactly the same way that he sees it. I'm not as analytical. If you ask me about parts of a movie, I'm not going to analyze it. I would just talk more about how it made me feel. And so that's what was interesting for that particular thing, was that's not anywhere near the way I would answer if someone asked me, have you seen this movie? I wouldn't be talking about the directing styles and the camera angles.
Mm-hmm. Are you a fan of punk rock like York and Zach?
Not as much as they are. I like a lot of music, and I have a wide variety of music tastes, but not to that extent that they do.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason why I became such a fan of York's character, is because he talked to us, and during those car conversations, I really felt like I got to know his character just from his passion for the movies or punk rock. It was just something, he was sharing a part of himself. We don't get a lot of that in video games nowadays. It's just sort of here's your backstory of your character, but you're not going to really learn that much more about them. It's very surface level.
For the most part, the characters are one-dimensional, and you don't know that much about them. And so that's what was interesting about both of these games, is that you're really starting to discover more of what they're like and how they're influenced and why. And I can tell you, I've probably played 200 other characters where there was no background at all. It was just I will fight you, and then I'd make fighting sounds, and I'd either win or I'd die, and that was it. That's all you know about that character.
We have a request from Disco Bright. They want to know if you could do the whistle theme. The whistle, Life is Beautiful.
Oh. Do you know, I'm trying to remember how it goes. Swery actually had to do it for me the second time, because it had been, 6 or 7 years since I had heard it, and I'd completely forgotten it. and I'm trying to remember it now. Why don't you guys do it, and then I'll pick up on it.
Okay, give me a second. I can't whistle, so do 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 do.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that. You know, when you were first singing it, it sounded a little like Charlie Brown Christmas.
We have another question, and again, if it's going to be a spoiler, you can feel free not to answer. But
Okay.
can we count on some more hanging out in the car with York talking about movies this time in Deadly Premonition 2?
I can tell you without any spoilers that he does go on about several other things that he loves about movies and directors and things too. So you'll get more of that in this game for sure.
Yay!
Such a relief.
Agent Fink says you should have your own channel where you review movies and games in York's character. That would be really cool.
I would love to find out what York thought about various movies.
See what he thinks.
The internet would as well.
He'd have to have some good writers too.
That's true.
Well, I heard that the movie conversations are actually real conversations Swery had with Kenji Goda, his co-writer. It's just stuff that they would have talk about over beers and whatnot, and it was like what they would say verbatim. Really, they just copied their own conversations. So I guess apparently Swery and Kenji Goda are very analytical with their movie conversations.
Well, they travel a lot, and they're on long flights. You have to realize, they're on an 8 to 10 hour flight from Japan, and you have to talk about something. So
yeah. So have you actually played Deadly Premonition, or have you just watched others play?
No, I've played it a little bit. When it first came out, I actually had to have my stepsons play it because I couldn't get to the end because I'm not a great gamer, so I would constantly just get stuck or die, and so I had to have them do it.
There's some terrible combat in the first game, so yeah.
Yeah, well, a lot of the games that I've done, voices for and a lot of them were fighting games or mech games, things like that. And I couldn't, if I played it by myself, I would never get to the level where you would meet the character that I played. So I'd have to have them play it for me.
Aw.
Because they were much better at it than I was. I mean, I grew up on, the Atari 2600, and the PlayStation came out while I was in college, and I didn't have time for gaming when I was in college. So by the time it had come out, I didn't learn it. I didn't grow up learning the console, and it's almost impossible for me.
Have you seen any of the playthroughs? A lot of people got into this game thanks to the Giant Bomb endurance runs. I watched those; are really funny. Have you watched any playthroughs online of Deadly Premonition?
I've just seen scenes where I'll see it online, but actually that would be really interesting to be able to discover that and go through it that way. So you guys can send me the info on that.
Sure. If you want to know every little thing about the game, I can send you mine, but I'm not as funny as the endurance run guys at Giant Bomb. We
have a question from the text.
Yeah.
Any strong feelings about Baby Yoda?
Yeah. Baby Yoda is awesome. I just saw the finale.
Don't say that.
I'm not gonna say a word.
Spoilers. Yeah, no spoilers.
I'm not gonna spoil it.
Ban anyone from the chat who starts to spoil the ending.
Yeah. Yeah, no, actually Baby Yoda has already shown a lot as suggestions in our improv show, Comedy Sports. We've been getting it for the last several weeks, so
Baby
it's fun to act it out too.
Baby Yoda is so cute. It's just a shame that there's no merchandise out for Christmas. We gotta wait till May to get our own Baby Yodas.
Yeah, but if there had been merchandise, it would have been spoiled. So it's
Right.
better we all found out together.
I read was it recently? It was like a Google alert. Apparently, we can thank Jenny Glover for convincing them not to make it a surprise. Because he said, people don't get surprises anymore. You know, Beyonce just drops an album and it's like a big surprise and everyone's so happy. You should make this a surprise. Which is why there was no leaks or merchandise.
That's fantastic.
Oh,
well, yeah, it's much harder to do. You know, I remember when, you know, for instance, The Empire Strikes Back came out, and I didn't see the movie for probably a week or two after it came out, and I still had no idea what was going to happen in it because, you know, there was no such thing as spoilers. You had to talk to somebody who had seen the movie like face to face.
You couldn't just open up Twitter and get it spoiled for you like 2 days before you went.
Spoiled.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's what happens now. It's almost a contest for people. So, you know, for instance, for, you know, Rise of Skywalker, if I was on Facebook, anytime someone mentioned, oh, I saw it, I would immediately just flip by it and mute it so that I wouldn't know anything or anything that happened. And yeah, that's the only way to do it. But it's hard to live that way.
Oh, someone has a question. Zero Brightness, they see you're also involved with the voice acting for Echo Knight Beyond, a game they've loved for a long time.
Oh, great.
Was there anything interesting or notable about the experience working on that game?
Wow, that was a long time ago. Do they know what year the game came out?
I don't know. Do you know what year the game came out? let me see if I can.
PlayStation 2 game, so it would have been 2002, 2003.
Let's see. 2004.
Wow.
Apparently has several people from the Deadly Premonition cast.
Yeah, that's a lot of us were, you know, working together at the same studio during that time. So that voiceover studio is where we recorded most of Deadly Premonition. And so that's why there was a stable of actors that had been working together. And they used us. So we did a lot of games together, although again, we were never together. You know, I'd see them, sometimes they'd be showing up as I was leaving. But it's very rare that you are recording with another actor. That's something that's very unusual about voice acting, as opposed to, you know, doing a play or doing live improv, is that you have to have those people around you to pull out what you want from your character to react to them. And in voice acting, you don't have them there. Sometimes you'll hear them, but it's something that's already been recorded, and the engineer will just play it back and you'll just hear their line, and then you're supposed to react to that.
What was the studio approach to do the voice acting in Deadly Premonition, or was it something you personally went and auditioned for yourself?
Well, I auditioned for it, but it was through the studio. So in other words, the studio called and said, all right, we have this. It was just like any other project. You know, they said, we have this project. Can you come in and audition for it? And generally what you'll do is you'll go in and read for 2 or 3 different characters. And then sometimes there's a callback, but oftentimes it's just you got it or you didn't get it.
Did you just read for York, or what other characters in the game did you read for?
I'm pretty sure I read for 2 or 3 other characters in there because, you know, the directors hadn't heard any of us before. For Deadly Premonition, you know, we were going to be working with Swery, and so he didn't know any of us. So I think we all went in and read for several different characters, and then Swery just kind of listened and picked out what he heard in his mind as the characters, and, you know, who he thought would fit best for each character.
Was York the one you wanted to voice, or you didn't have a?
I didn't really have a preference because I didn't know a lot about it. You know, you'll read half a dozen lines, and they're in different parts of the story sometimes. So you really have no idea what you are. You really don't know the story arc when you're auditioning. You just have a little bit here and a little piece there. And sometimes you can figure out, oh, I think I have an idea of what this story is. And other times it's just unrelated dialogue and you're just reading different things and that's it.
Oh, someone else. Okay, Agent Fink, again. Were you surprised at how big of a cult following this game got? For example, when it was announced that there was going to be a sequel, they bought a Switch the next day. Like they were
That's
that
great.
they were that hardcore. And if I didn't already have a Switch, I would have bought one the same day too. So were you surprised at like how much of a cult like classic it is nowadays, or did you have a feeling?
No, that's the thing. It's different when, if you're making a movie or doing a play, you can get an idea while you in rehearsal, or while it's coming together, of what the finished product is going to be like. Again, because you're surrounded by the people that you're performing with. And, especially in a live performance, you pretty much know ahead of time how the public is going to react to it, because you get this feeling of how the cast is coming together and how everybody's performances are. But for Deadly Premonition, all I knew was what I did. I had no idea how it fit with everybody else. I hadn't heard what Rebecca did. I hadn't heard what Casey did. I didn't have the whole story until the end, where they basically just told me, here's what happens in the story, but I didn't hear the whole thing put together. So you really have no idea what it's going to be like until the game comes out, really. We don't get to see, like a preview, like actors doing a movie, they might get a private screening of it.
Yeah.
We don't get a private screening in the game. We see the game when you see the game.
Besides York, what were some of your most notable voice acting roles from that era? Like, being particularly notable, interesting, or challenging? Like, so from 2004 to now, like, what are some of your most notable roles, you'd say?
Well, Seaman was notable one. I did the Superman in a game, and that was interesting because if you're playing Superman, how do you do Superman, differently than everybody else?
Which game were you Superman in?
Yeah.
Which game was it?
I think it was for Xbox. I think it was Superman, Man of Steel.
Okay, at least it wasn't the N64 one.
There were a bunch of, there are a lot of Superman games that have come out. But when they said, okay, you're going to do Superman's voice in this game, I'd seen all the Superman movies and heard a couple of other voices in some animated Superman. So,
Big shoes to fill.
How do you do a character that's so iconic and try to make it seem like, okay, this sounds like Superman, but is not like every other Superman?
Oh.
And I don't remember exactly how I did. Challenge behind it was, you're playing this character that all of these other famous actors have done, and so how do you make it yours and still make it sound like it could be the voice of a superhero?
Agent wants to know, what's your favorite Atari 2600 game?
Let's see. I would say probably Missile Command.
Missile Command.
Oh, Mr. Command. Such a classic.
Yeah, that and Asteroids was pretty cool too. The difference, of course, when you played those games was you'd go to play it in the arcade, and the graphics and everything were so much better. Space Invaders was the best example. In the arcade version of it, you'd see these graphics and those look like aliens coming down, and on the Atari 2600 they were just blobs. they didn't have the graphics available at the time. So I remember my stepson, when he was probably 10 years old, and I was talking to him about playing these old school games, and he said, what was it like when you were playing these, knowing that the graphics weren't that good?
They were good at the time.
I said to him, when Pong first came out, we were floored. It was because there was nothing, like that before. That's what's interesting. If you had seen Star Wars, Episode 4 when it first came out in the theaters, it was a very different experience. Than waiting for, Episode 7. I remember going with people to see Episode 7, and for them, that was their Episode 4. Like, they were too young when the first movies came out. So this was the first, like, new Star Wars that they had seen. And, afterwards they were like, isn't that great? Aren't you as excited as you were the first time? And I said, no, because this is just, the technology is moving forward, but you can see where it's coming from now.
Yeah.
When I watched episode 4 in the theater, it was before that, it was almost like, pie plates and strings for special effects. And then, when that destroyer flies over your head in the theater, you're just floored. You've never seen anything like that before. Just the leap in technology was so gigantic then. And, that's the interesting thing, was the leap in technology from nothing to something like Pong. It's like, how is this on the TV? This is amazing.
I mean,
you're actually controlling something on the television for the first time.
I mean, just in my own lifetime, the difference between, I was 4 years old, played Atari, and then going to Nintendo, that was a big deal. 8-bit, and then 16-bit, and 32-bit, and then PlayStation 1, seeing those CG movies was just mind-boggling to me. I was like, oh my god, they look real. But then when you look back now, it's like, oh, not that real. A lot better nowadays. But yeah, just...
Well, look at we have a... sorry. Please finish answering, because we have another inside gossip question.
Oh, okay. Well, even the difference between Deadly Premonition 1 and Deadly Premonition 2, right?
York's hot now.
Well, and you can also see York in 4K, right? Which we didn't have before. That was the beginnings of HD, but not everybody had an HD TV.
720. The first game is 720 on the PC. So there you go. Mm-hmm. All right, so here's the inside gossip question people have. You have an inside line with swearing. Has there been any talk of turning it into a movie or TV?
Wow.
Have you heard anything about that?
That'd be awesome.
But, I would be just as interested in everybody else.
Netflix series. That'd be awesome.
Get on this, Netflix.
Wouldn't that be great to see that to see a live version of this? That would be amazing.
God, that my decade would be made.
Yeah, mine too.
I always joked.
Do you have any personality similarities to York? Zero Brightness asked.
Let's see. Well, I do like coffee, so that's good. No, I think there are times when my personality can match York's. It doesn't happen all the time, but there are times when I'll get in kind of quieter moments and more introspective moments, like he does. But
hopefully you don't put off people as much.
Yeah, I'm very different from that character, but there are times when certain traits of his will come out.
Cool. Okay. I was always pretty sad. There's so much optional conversations in this game. This is one of the reasons why I love this game, and I've played it so much over the years, is if players can go and explore Greenville and they can talk to these characters and they can get a lot of background information, but a lot of it is just text on the screen. When you guys got the script, were you supposed to voice everything in the game? Even those conversations, or if any of that stuff had to be cut for time, since you only had 2 weeks?
No, I think we recorded everything. That's why it gets intense, because you're in there for several hours at a time. And what's nice is that you get in a groove, but then there are also times when you just kind of trip up on certain words and you just can't. It feels like you've done 8 takes on one line because you just can't get the words out. And then other times where it just kind of gets flowing and you go. But we would take breaks because it sounds like it's really easy, and compared to a lot of other jobs, it is easy. I mean, you're just you're either sitting or standing and just reading lines, but it also can just get very taxing as well. And so, you take a break every hour and a half, because it's a lot of reading. I mean, just imagine you're just reading lines of dialogue by yourself for, an hour to an hour and a half, and then doing it again, and then doing it again, and then doing it again.
I know it's not easy, because I record commentary and I would redo it, I don't know, like 10, 20 times, and it's 3 minutes of dialogue, and it's like, oh my God, so many hours I put into re-recording this line because I cannot say the word. Ugh, it is not easy.
Exactly. And then there are times when, you think you've done it right, and the director will hear something that doesn't sound quite right. And so they'll have you do it again. And other times where it's just a technical thing, they'll say, you popped your P a little too much, so you've got to go back and do it. And you didn't even hear yourself do that, but you did. So
Has anybody
Have
ever...
you ever been recognized as the voice of York Morgan or any other game you've played?
no, that's the interesting thing about this. People might, if I tell them, then they'll say, "Oh, yeah, I guess I kind of hear it." It's hard to hear it in casual conversation, but that's actually a good thing about it. One of um, person that I really admire is, there's a lot of voiceover actors that I really admire, and Dan Castellaneta is one of my favorites, and he's among a million other things he does. He's the voice of Homer Simpson,
Mhm.
and I actually got to do improv with him in a show several years ago, where he played 3 or 4 different characters, and none of them sounded like Homer at all. And he must play, I don't know, probably 6 to 8 different voices on that show. And
Yeah.
everybody, the great thing about it is everybody in the world knows who he is, but nobody really knows what he looks like. And so he has the greatest acting career you can imagine, because he can go anywhere he wants in LA and have total freedom to go around. He doesn't have people coming up to him. He doesn't have paparazzi chasing him. He could be sitting right next to you in a restaurant and you would have no idea. But if you heard him, you would know exactly who it was.
Oh, yeah. So we have another question. I don't know if this might be spoiler or whatever. Zero Brightness says, one of the best parts of Deadly Premonition is the slice of life side content, optional jobs to help people around town, and the flavor dialogue that comes with all of that. Does Deadly Premonition 2 continue the tradition of this type of content? Did you have to record tons of dialogue completely unrelated to anything else in the game?
I don't think there's as much of that in Deadly Premonition 2, because it's a much heavier plot. Without doing any spoilers, but it's much more singularly focused in the plot. Now it's very difficult to try and figure out, and I thought I knew exactly what was happening. It turned out I was dead wrong. In that too, and I think that's what's going to be fun for everybody else too. Is when you think you know what's happening, it takes a turn, and you go, I did not see that coming. I had not a clue how that was going to happen.
Sorry, still has it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Oh man, I cannot wait for this. Then, I already had high hopes, but just hearing you talk about your own surprise, just my excitement is now up like to 20 instead of 10.
No, and I think that's the thing that we're most excited about, is just, has he, and I mean, you've already answered the question, has he done it again? And you're telling us, the biggest fans in the world of this game, that this is going to be even better. Like, there's so much to be excited about.
I think so. That's my personal opinion. And you're going to have some people that are going to give it a 10, and hopefully you're not going to have people giving it a 1 this time on the other end.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not. I just hope that this game isn't broken. The sequel is a little bit more polished in the technical department than Deadly Premonition 1, because it's had a hell of a time getting a decent port.
Now that we know about it getting pushed back 9 months or 10 months, I think we got a good reason to think that it is.
Yeah, hopefully
in a better condition.
Yeah, I hope so. And I think they had much more advances in technology available to them this time as well. So it may have even been that in the first game, there wasn't the technology to support Sweary's vision of how he saw it happening.
Oh, definitely. He talked about having to remove stuff because they just didn't have either the manpower or the money to do what he wanted. Like, he wanted like 100 people you could interact with, lots of different side stuff, he wanted to be in a city at first, but that was just out of the realm of the possibility. And hopefully with the sequel, he can do a lot more of the side stuff he wanted to do.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing is like some other artists too. The technology has caught up. Hopefully, is starting to catch up to Swery's imagination.
Yeah.
Well, and that's brings me to my next question, which is, you've told us that there is not the same kind of side missions, the same kind of wandering around. It's much more plot focused this time. But what kind of just size wise, even if you weren't working with other actors, you could at least give us some sense maybe of what kind of cast of characters are we dealing with? Is it a huge spanning cast of characters, or is it relatively a moderate number the way the first?
Well, what I can tell you, again, not having seen the whole finished product, but if you think of it in terms of a prequel and a sequel, imagine stacking those worlds together. So as far as expanse.
Okay. So it really is that level of content.
Well, I think so. I think the way I see it is, in the first game, it was very, very wide.
Mm-hmm.
And in this one, I don't think it's quite as wide, but you stack worlds on top of each other. And so if you go in that direction, it could be just as wide as the first game, if not wider. But you're going back and forth between these two areas.
Okay, we have a controversial question here. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
If you're asking me, I would say I can't eat pineapple on pizza.
Aww.
I think it's okay. I don't put
If you
pineapple.
ask other characters, though, they would tell you absolutely.
Have you experienced anything supernatural or a premonition? See anything in your coffee cup?
Oh, no, not in a coffee cup. I'll see things, cloud formations and things like that. But I don't have that same ability that York has.
Oh man, I would love to get daily fortunes in my coffee cup.
I know, wouldn't that be great?
Yeah. Looks like you picked the right answer. They're like, it does not belong on pizza.
Good. Well, like I said, I'm originally from the East Coast, so I was raised on sausage and pepperoni and mushroom and that sort of thing. Pineapple I didn't really see until I came out to California.
Did you have a chance to try the board game, the Deadly Premonition board game?
No. I didn't. I thought I might get a copy of it, but I did not get a copy of it for doing the voice.
What?
From it too, so.
You didn't get a copy?
Terrible.
Oh no.
Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. I got a copy. I remember when Deadly Premonition came out. I got a copy of it, but the only way I could play it at the time, I think, was to get the version released in Japan.
Oh, so you didn't have a 360.
Right. And so it was subtitled, but that was the only way to play it on the game system that we had at the time. Keep in mind, when that came out, there were no streaming services. So it was either have a PlayStation, have an Xbox, have a Dreamcast, like have every single console, which I did not, or you pick, and then you get to play the games that are available for that console.
Right.
Did you end up getting the director's cut then, when it was released on PS3?
Yes, I did. In fact, I went in and I'm looking at a copy of it now. Because we recorded, I had to go back into the studio and record a couple of things just for the director's cut.
Yeah, for the extra cut scenes, which they've removed for the Switch version. I guess it conflicts with the story of the sequel. Someone just said, "Wait, this voice is familiar." Yeah, It's Francis York Morgan. Zero Brightness wants to know, what album musician do you never get tired of hearing? Apparently, Solid V2 did not see my little image here on the top right corner.
So, oh, for me, like, what musical artist I never get tired of?
Yeah, or what album do you like?
Oh, well, for me, that's me personally. That's easy. It's Bruce Springsteen. And then, I'm a big Beatles fan as well. So I never get tired of hearing music from either of them.
Did you see Blinded by the Light?
Yes.
That was a really good movie. Yeah.
Blinded by the Light, and also Yesterday is another great
Yesterday
movie
was good. I've seen them both. They're both good.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Is there an anime you like? Do you watch anime?
No, I was raised on old school anime and
Speed Racer,
old school animation, which for me is Bugs Bunny.
oh.
But I have watched anime as well, just because my stepsons were into it a lot. So if they're watching it, then I'm watching some of it with them as well. So I've seen some series, and Spirited Away was a great movie as well. I saw that.
Yeah, Miyazaki's really good.
So do you have another beyond Deadly Premonition, which is of course our favorite role of yours, and Seaman? Like, is there? You say you've played a lot of just random characters in a lot of games. Is there one that sticks out to you? Is there something you were in that people might be surprised to find out you were in?
Boy, I'd have to look. I know I was in one of the Sonic games, and the reason I was in that was because I had to they asked me to come in and re-record the voice for an actor who was in it. I've done some ones where there were games that were popular in Japan that they brought over to the US, and so they had to re-record the voices with American actors, even though the game was already out, in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So go in and they'll say, you would kind of hear the actor doing it in Japanese, and then you're trying to recreate how they're doing that role, but also doing it in English. So it's really interesting when you don't speak Japanese to just go, all right, I think I know what emotional point
I figured out his intonation. I'm just gonna go for it.
And that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay, so someone just said, so you've seen Tom and Jerry. I want to know, do you take York's view on the relationship between Tom?
I didn't hear the whole thing.
Tom and Jerry, do you take York's view on their relationship?
I think Tom gets a raw deal sometimes.
But maybe that's what he wants.
Yeah, in the same way that Coyote gets a raw deal sometimes too with the Roadrunner.
That opening line for Francis York Morgan, I follow Deadly Premonition on Twitter, so I could retweet or whatever, because I run a fan site for the game, and so many times I've heard, what is he saying about Tom and Jerry? Holy shit, mind blown. Oh man, the writing.
I think sometimes Swery puts some lines in specifically just to get a reaction out of people, and
but it makes sense.
See if you're paying attention.
It makes sense though.
Well, I mean, hey, it's thematically consistent with the rest of the game and the S&M relationship at the core of it.
True. So. He did say Thomas would make a good character in a cartoon. Maybe he's thinking Tom and Jerry.
I mean, the character's literally named Thomas.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Well, and also keep in mind with a lot of these now that you know how Swery sees things and conversations that he had with Tomiya, that a lot of this is Swery too.
Yeah, he said in interviews that a lot of York's interests and just some of his dialogue, just his own thoughts. He's most like York, personality wise, which you could totally see if you follow him on social media, and him, being a fanboy over a bunch of stuff, like Twin Peaks, Star Wars, everything.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, so we know you like Twin Peaks. What other shows are you really into? I really like Mr. Robot.
Yes, no, I like that. It's got a lot of the same kind of elements in it as Twin Peaks as well. Just the mystery of what's going on and happening too. Obviously doing improv, there's a number of comedies, that I've always enjoyed watching. So do they want to know just like currently what I'm watching, or
just other shows you're really into, so I assume currently.
Yeah.
Well,
what
are
you recommending?
What am I recommending right now?
Oh, they just went whatever. So yeah, what are you going to recommend people watch?
What should people check out?
Well, what's interesting is we just finished watching the morning show on Apple TV.
I want to see that. I don't have Apple TV though.
It's great, and especially if you liked Aaron Sorkin, they were very influenced by that. But it's a really interesting story, and it's very current, and you'll look at Steve Carell and Jennifer Aniston in a completely different way after watching this. They are almost unrecognizable as far as the characters they're playing. I've never seen either of them play characters like this before.
Have you seen Steve Carell in A Foxhound?
Yeah.
Oh, he was so good in that movie. I was like, oh my god.
He takes it another step forward in this one. If you ever thought it was possible to really not like Steve Carell, you're gonna be surprised.
Oh.
We're gonna get there watching that.
Have you have you seen like True Detective, Fargo?
Yeah, I love both of those. Mainly just because the actors in it are just so amazing, and they're just actors that I respect, and so you can tell why they took on these roles just because the writing is great and who they're paired up with. Fargo too is great. Well, I love the movie. And so when the series came out, that's the interesting thing about the series is, it's different stories every year.
Yeah.
Every season too.
And kind of a tribute to all of the Coen brothers stuff rather than just Fargo.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, someone wants to know, do you like Whose Line Is Anyway? That was their intro to improv, and it got them great. Doing it during school. Excellent. I love that show.
Well, that for me, I'm glad that the show came out because, we had been doing improv for years and years and years, and nobody really knew what improv was, unless you were an improviser. Mm-hmm. People, when they heard improv, they would say, "Oh, you mean like that comedy club, the Improv?" And we'd say, "No, that's improv is actually, there's no improv done at the Improv. It's just the name of a stand-up comedy club." So Whose Line actually got improv more into the stream and the consciousness of people. So, they would start to come and watch our live show because they saw it on TV and went, "Oh, I bet this would be even better live."
What got you into improv? Was it something you did in school and then you just found you really liked it and then decided to go that career path?
Yeah.
What inspired you?
I got into it when I was in college. I was a theater major and I was doing acting. And so, improv was always a small part of acting training, which I always enjoyed. But I had done some stand-up and didn't like it at all because I just couldn't handle that pressure of being out there by myself and being judged for me. Mm-hmm. As an actor, if I do a role, especially if it's a voiceover role, I've done some things. When Superman came out, there were some people that absolutely slammed the voice acting in Superman.
Oh.
It actually didn't bother me at all because I just did what the director and the writer wanted me to do. They said, do the voice like this, now change it a little bit, now change it a little bit, do it like that. Okay, perfect. So, I was working with them to develop it, but they didn't like what I did as far as that particular role. And that's, fine. It's someone's opinion and I can live with that. But when I did stand up, when the audience didn't like it, they were saying, "We don't like you personally. You're not funny." Right. And so I hated that feeling. I have friends who are stand-ups and I have no idea how they do it. It takes a set of skills to be able to get up in front of people and bomb one night and go over really well the next night with the exact same material and trying to figure out why, with different audiences. But when they don't like you in stand up, they don't like you personally. And that's what I didn't like.
Yeah.
And then I did some comedy with a partner or two, and I liked that a lot better. And then discovered, just doing improv with a bigger group of people. And I really like that. I love the team aspect of doing improv because it's us against the world. And if it goes well, we all had a hand in it. And if it doesn't go well, we all had a hand in it.
Yeah, I think improv would be just so hard to do, just on the spot, like to think of things.
Well, that's the thing is that, I've discovered over the years is that when you're doing improv, you're with a group of people, so you don't have to think of something all the time. And that took a lot of the pressure off of me. I don't have to worry. There are nights when I'm performing down at Comedy Sports where I feel like there's nothing going on for me creatively. I can't, someone will yell out a suggestion and I can't think of anything interesting. But what's great is that somebody on my team does think of something really interesting. And then all I have to do is just become a part of their scene, and do some things that help support their idea. So it doesn't matter whether I'm on or not. I just have to recognize when, who is on, and we give them the ball basically, and run with them and support them.
Oh. Comedy is some of the roughest material to specialize in. Even the biggest pros with the thickest skin can get worn down. Don't know why, it's just oddly personal. Yeah, that seems to be the case. I don't know how a lot of people do it. I'm
not sure either. And there is no stand-up that you can name that is any more famous, than people, like Jerry Seinfeld, and Sarah Silverman, and they've all bombed many times in their career. There's not a single stand-up that has not had a terrible experience where the audience absolutely hated them.
Did you see the the new Twilight Zone series? The first episode was about a comedian and having the power to make people laugh.
Oh, interesting.
But there was, of course, a downside. It's Twilight Zone, so there's a downside to getting the big laughs. You might be interested in seeing that.
Yeah, there's a downside, of course, to all of that.
And now I'm going to ask the question that you can't answer because it would be a spoiler, but I would feel like I'm cheating the audience if I don't ask it, which is, any chance if there's going to be a Deadly Premonition 3?
Actually, I have no idea, and I'm not saying that to be coy.
Okay.
Because I had no idea that there was going to be a Deadly Premonition 2.
Okay.
It just, it seemed like it was a complete story and it was, finished and over. But you never know. It's Sweary's imagination. He's just, like I said, he's always one step ahead and he's always working on the next project. So, who knows? He didn't say anything to me, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's noodling around, with ideas for, where else he could go from there. So, who knows? But I know as much as you know.
Okay.
I mean, the fact that I didn't think it was possible, and then surprise, it's happening. I wouldn't put it past him. He might sneak up another game out there,
or there may be something else that is, part Deadly Premonition, part, another game. So
crossover.
Yeah,
crossover with the Good Life or the Missing. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Well, I think what we all really want to see is York Morgan in Smash Brothers.
Oh yes, York for Smash. Yes. Technically a Nintendo guy now. So yes. What was your?
Sorry, please. Go.
I was going to say, what was your favorite suit that York could wear in the game? If you can remember any of them, I can give you a link to all his outfits. He had some wild suits.
I think the maybe the first place that you see him, like this, for me, it's important, like the very first meeting that you have the first time
Yeah.
that you see any character in a game. It really sets up who they are and where they're going.
Where he's wearing a formal FBI suit but a blood red tie.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that's his FBI agent suit. I'm hoping we get some funny ones in the sequel.
I'm looking
do
at
you
some of the
have
suits
any-
now.
Please. Do you have, while you're doing that, do you have any video game recommendations? We know you don't play much, but is there anything casual you've been enjoying, or do you really just not play much?
I really don't play that much. I just watch, like I said, if my stepson's playing a particular game, might be looking at it. But, for me, that's the interesting thing was, the favorite game that I ever played was Myst.
Oh, Myst.
Yeah.
Now that's something else.
And I would actually play that if they figured out a way to bring it back. Especially with the technology.
I think it's on
today.
PC. You can get it from Steam. You can get Myst all the way to the third or the fourth one too. Yeah.
I can tell you that a couple of years ago, the developers of the original Myst made a new Myst-style game that was fully 3D. So we can find out the title of that and get it to you.
Yeah, I mean, that would be really cool to
follow-up.
play that. When that first came out, it was just groundbreaking to be able to just inhabit this world and just go off and explore in all of these different directions. Plus, the music was great. And
so there's both a new game from those developers in the style, and Myst, of course, was just static screens, and you turned in directions and walked to the next screen. They've rebuilt Myst from the ground up, so it's an actual 3D world you can walk through. That's the exact same map as the original.
Oh, that would be great. I mean,
that's the thing you can get.
Oh, okay.
Is it it's just PC, or is it on consoles too?
It is on PC.
Oh,
okay. Oh, well, I'll have to see. That's what I'm holding out for is, a streaming version of it that you can do, and with a VR headset and that sort of thing, just to enter that world, because I envisioned it as I was playing it.
Oh, of course. Alan Wake is pointing out that the game was called Obduction. 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 I don't know if it's available in VR though. I'm sorry to say.
All right, I'll have to find it, because in addition to the odds are stacked against me already, because I'm also a Mac guy instead of a PC guy. So.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, and someone just says, "What's your favorite horror movie?" You said you weren't really a fan of horror, but do you have like a favorite horror themed movie, even an old one?
Yeah, well, I actually just rewatched Psycho a few weeks ago, and just the way that's set up is just brilliant. I mean, it's Hitchcock, and just the way he tells the story, and the camera angles and the shots, and the fact that you find out that the shower scene, that famous shower scene, has it has around 40 different edits in a 3-minute scene.
Mm-hmm.
Did you watch the shot by shot remake in '98? I think it was '98, or was it?
Oh, with Vince Vaughn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it wasn't the same, because what's coming, right? So it was very different with that. I would say Alien also just scared the crap out of me. And I only watched it because I heard it was a sci-fi movie. I thought it was like a sci-fi thriller. I didn't realize it was a sci-fi horror movie. And like I said, I'm not a huge fan. So I went to see it with some friends, and I had no idea what was coming again. And it just,
Yeah, no, it's an amazing movie. So
I still can't watch it to this day.
Really?
I saw it once in the theater, and then that was it. The only other version I ever saw of it was in Spaceballs, where they recreated the scene in Spaceballs.
Of course.
With the thing popping out of the chest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then singing "Hello, My Baby,"
Mm-hmm.
it was,
doing the Michigan J. Frog routine from Warner Brothers.
Yeah. So I could handle that, but I can't watch it other than that.
Oh, we got a love for some Alien in the chat, and Spaceballs is the best.
Oh, that is good to hear.
Oh, someone has
a Chestburster plushie. Nice.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Mm.
So yes, now for just the career question, I know that there are always people who are desperate to find out about what it's like to be a voice actor. And do you have any advice for people who are passionate to get into that? What kind of studying they should do? What kind of training should they get? How did you get into it?
Well, for me, I was already doing some performing, and like when I was a kid, my friends and I would make audio recordings. We'd write our own scripts and then do our own shows, and we'd just record them for ourselves, just like on cassettes. And so, I mean, I grew up doing voices, just funny voices with my friends, and we were writing and creating our own content, and so obviously today there's way more resources available for writing and producing your own content. So you can do that and get it out there and, have people see it and hear it. And, just to kind of experiment with what your voice can do, what you're capable of doing. I mean, you have your own speaking voice, which could be good for some characters, but, I think one of the reasons why I've done a lot of different games is because it's a combination of growing up just doing funny voices, but also the improv training too, of being able to just try something and then can you try it a little differently and just immediately be able to turn it in another direction just to see where it goes.
Okay. Yeah, so what you're saying is one of the fact that everyone now has access to all of this equipment and to the audience that is built into, say, YouTube and Twitch and the various other social apps gives you, I mean, you at the time when you're starting out, you didn't have the capability of finding an instant audience.
Right. And it's a lot easier now to find that content. And so a lot of times people just ask me, how can I get better at voices? And I'll say, just try and impersonate famous voices that you already know and hear. And you might find that you're able to replicate that voice exactly, but even if you're not, you had to change your voice to be able to do that voice. So even if you don't get it exactly, you've now figured out how to try and manipulate your voice to go in different directions.
Okay.
It's no different than trying to do something physically, change the way you walk or change the way you move and try and do an impression of the way someone walks. I mean, everybody's got some favorite voices and characters, and you can approximate some, but there are some that you have to have just a natural ability, and it's the vocal instrument you have. So, for instance, I can't do James Earl Jones's voice because my voice physically won't go that low, right? But you can do an approximation of it or make your voice as low as you comfortably can, and try and do an impression of James Earl Jones, but by doing that, you've created a new voice for yourself.
Okay.
And the same thing even with, animated characters as well. Try and do a voice of an animated character from your favorite show or game.
Well, we do have a request here. Rainbow would like you to do your favorite line from Deadly Premonition in York's voice. So
for York's voice? Well,
in York's voice, yeah.
Oh, in York's voice.
Yeah.
Well, there's only one line that just, sticks with me that you can't get out of your head because he says it so often, which is just, call me York. My friends call me York.
Very cool. Very cool.
So do that with your own name, whatever your name is. Just do that. So you can just, I want to hear you say, call me Whitney.
Okay. Call me Whitney. That's what everyone calls me.
Perfect. Now say it about 1,000 more times.
Oh God, I'll hate my name by the end of that. We got a lot of that was awesome, and surprise faces. Oh man,
Aw.
yes, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Oh,
great.
and
Well, I'll be really interested in hearing how people feel about Deadly Premonition 2, because like I said, it's pretty amazing, and how he even thought of this without being on a number of different drugs, I have no idea.
Oh, and Papa D64, he said, "Hi Jeff, love listening to you talk. You have a great voice."
Well, thank you.
Aw.
Thanks,
Lots of
Papa.
lots of love. Oh, I just can't wait to see Deadly Premonition 2. I mean, I'm sure I'll probably love it just as much as I did with this game. What? Oh, Ikari Warrior wants to know, what are your thoughts on the soundtrack of the game?
Well, the music and the soundtrack is always something for me that, in movies or anything I see, it's just as important as the story as well. It can really influence the mood and the setting, and it bothers me when it's not done well. So this is something that I think people will still enjoy too. Like I said, Swery pays a great deal of attention to detail and things that other people would just say, let's just get this out. We can use whatever sounds or music we want. And he really sees the details in that, and that's very important to him.
Did you have a favorite track from the original game?
No, I just admired how he used sound in general,
Mm-hmm.
and how he used music in general as well.
There was some interesting sound decisions used for this game, like going from dramatic sounding music to funny sounding music, like in the same scene. Like, oh no, someone died. Let's be very dramatic, and then there's Willie. Let's do the saxophone. Dun 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 dun. Dun, dun. Yeah, it's very gives you whiplash sometimes, but I think it's part of the charm.
Yeah, I think that is it. I think a lot of people saw that too.
And Agent would like to know, what would you like to do in the future? An ideal job?
Well, I would say to find a project where I can do a number of different voices that all sound different. And, for something like I said, with Dan Castellaneta, what I admire so much about him was that he could play all these different characters. And then if you met him and just talked to him, you would have no idea that he had played all these characters. And so for me, that's the best compliment I can get, is when someone says, wait, you were that character?
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea. It didn't sound anything like you. Or, if I'm performing, it didn't look anything like you, or it didn't seem anything like you. It's kind of like what we were talking about with Steve Carell, and Jennifer Aniston on the morning show. You would just say that's the best compliment I think a performer can get, is when people say, I had no idea. I expected this, and it completely surprised me.
I remember being very surprised when I was younger, finding out that like Mark Hamill was Joker. I had no idea, and I was like, oh my god, what?
Yeah.
Sounds so different.
Didn't know that, and I think that's one of the reasons why he took the job, why he had so much fun. He could do something where he wasn't typecast as a particular character, and he could do that vocally. He had a lot of trouble finding work as an actor after Star Wars, because his face was so identifiable with that one character. But your voice, you can manipulate and make it very, very different. And, like I said, that would be, for me, my dream job, is to have a life like Dan Castellaneta, where you are in demand and you're working all the time and you're making lots of money, and everybody knows who you are, but nobody knows what you look like.
Yeah.
And you're, it's like you're in disguise when you are you going out into the world.
And we have another question. The Unabridged Gamer wants to know, what is your favorite mystery? It can be fictional or a real unsolved or solved mystery. Ooh, true crime. That's my jam.
My wife loves true crime. She will watch.
Love it.
Anywhere, anytime.
Yep.
Watch true crime. So I don't know that I have a favorite from there because I'm not into true crime like she is. Because for me, I just see the crime part of it that horrifies me,
Hmm.
and
Right.
the entertainment isn't as much there for me as it is for other people. I tend to focus on the fact that somebody got killed or murdered.
But do you want to know why? No. But okay,
Oh yeah,
what about a fictional mystery?
a fictional mystery.
Like
Uh, well, actually, when I really got into all of the Sherlock Holmes novels when I was growing up, and so that I would say that's probably my favorite, fictional mystery is something like that where there are these really interesting characters, and you're trying to figure it out with them, and you still can't figure it out at the end,
yeah,
even though all the clues are there right in front of you.
funny
So do
how
you have any, I mean, you've said that Swery is one of the most amazing creators you've worked with. Do you have any interesting Swery stories you think the fans would like?
Well, I remember when we recorded the first Deadly Premonition. I drove out to this studio in Palo Alto, and I think the second day I got there early, and all of a sudden I hear this sound of this car coming down the street, and I heard the car before I saw it, and it was this huge like V8 Mustang that was coming down the street, and there was Swery in the car along with a couple of other producers, and they had the car. They had rented the car for the week that they were out in San Francisco, and so I asked the interpreter. I said, "What? How did they get that car?" And they said, "Oh, they rented it because there are no muscle cars in Japan."
yeah,
Wow.
York has a muscle car in the
That
game
explains
too.
York's car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, they came out again and it was the same thing. Whenever they came out, they always wanted to rent these big, huge classic American muscle cars because they couldn't get that experience in Japan. It was something that was unique to the US. So I always thought that was interesting. When they came out, they had to have those cars.
That's so
And so, yeah, it
funny.
probably does explain a lot.
He never really talks about cars on his social media. That's this. I
Yeah, it
could
might
tell.
just be
I
a
could totally see it
private thing.
though.
I hope I didn't
Yeah.
spill the beans on something he didn't want the world to know. All right,
Ah.
don't tell anyone. You guys are all sworn to secrecy.
Hear that, guys? Don't let it out of the bag.
Yeah, don't let him know. The other thing I can say is that when he contacted me through Facebook to just tell me that he was working on a sequel for Deadly Premonition,
Yeah.
and he said in the message it started with my English is pretty good now, isn't it, Zach?
He's so cute.
That was one of the first messages he sent me on Facebook, and that's
Oh,
how
that's
I found out.
fantastic.
Aw. I think I remember this was years ago, back when the game came out. Someone did a podcast where they interviewed Swery, but then they had you read his answers. What was that like? Did you enjoy doing that?
I remember doing that podcast several years ago too.
I always thought that was so cool.
I think that's when I first began to see the cult status of the game.
Yeah.
It was through that, doing the director's cut. Things kept coming back with it, where it began to dawn on me how many people it had really affected, and the status of the game. So that's interesting about this, is that it had the second time, a built-in fan base already just waiting for it. So that's why it's interesting to me to hear, your reaction when you first saw the preview of it.
Yeah, it was. I was like, I'm working. I can't cry.
Yeah, seeing that reaction is really rewarding for me. But like I said, I had just a small part in having this come together. When you play this game, I think people will just really appreciate the scope of it, like how much he dreamed up with Deadly Premonition 2. It just amazed me, the scope of this and how he thought of it and how much time it must have taken for him to put this whole thing together.
Yeah, I just, his imagination is like, seems to have no bounds. I just cannot believe we're getting a sequel. Oh, but I did have you tried a Sinner sandwich with the turkey, strawberry jam and cereal sandwich? Have you tried that?
I have not, but for $1, I will.
I gotta say, if you wanted to Kickstarter a video where the real life York Morgan tries a Sinner sandwich for the first time, that would go pretty well for you. Just not saying you have to do it. It would go pretty well for you.
Yes.
Can you imagine that's how I make my fortune?
Oh God.
I will wear the clothing he wears. I will eat the food. I will.
Oh God, yes. There's so many YouTube videos of people just trying the sandwich for the first time.
Well, I wouldn't want to take advantage of people, but if there are that many fans and $1, I think I would do pretty well.
There you go.
And we got people going, they would pay to see it. So definitely, if you have a charity you want to raise some money for, just say, hey, if you get this much, I'll do a video.
Okay.
All right. You know what? I will think about that now.
Okay.
And once you do, you got to send me a link so I could share it.
I will. And I'll send you a link to Comedy Sports.
Oh, yes.
So I'd love to have you come and see the show sometime.
Oh, yes. Yes, I am local. I wanted to go see that. Let me bring up the comedy so I can put it in the chat. Yes. We go.
Comedy Sports has a long and storied tradition. Like it's been around for quite a while.
Yeah, it started in 1984 in Milwaukee, and I got involved in it when I was going to school in Wisconsin, and so it's now in about 30 different cities, and it has grown tremendously over the years to the point where we have.
I've heard about some of that history because Dan Harmon, who made Community and such, of course, was a huge Comedy Sports guy, and he talks about it all of.
He got started when he was in high school because we have a high school outreach program where we teach students to do their own shows. And so Dan actually started in the Milwaukee high school program and then joined the company when he graduated from high school. Yeah, there's a lot of really talented people out there that have, ties to Comedy Sports.
Yeah, because from what you've said, it's not just about, obviously it's about trusting your teammates and being willing to learn to be supportive and work as a group. But a lot of it seems to be about teaching you to be very, plastic and malleable and willing to just jump on a new idea all of the time. And that just seems like a great way to see the world generally. Exactly.
And it's being present and reacting to things in the moment and trying to make the people around you look good too. It's definitely a collaborative effort. It's not all about one person.
So, are you on social media? Can people follow you like on Twitter or anything like that, or? Not
that much. I don't think that what I have to offer is that important.
That doesn't stop a lot of people.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. I think you've made my point for me.
No Twitter handle for us to play.
No, I don't do a lot on Twitter. And I'm on Facebook, and again, I don't do a lot of posting there as well. But I'm not a huge social media poster. I'll read it, but I don't do a lot of my own posting.
Yeah, we got people saying, do little videos and post them online. This is my coffee. That'd be cool. The weather is clear and sunny. Yeah, that'd be cool. I'd like to see that too. Yeah. So no YouTube we can link to?
No, not other than, with Comedy Sports. That's really the only place where we have content and things like that. But I don't put out a lot of personal content. Although now you're starting to make me to think that I should start doing that especially to raise money for different charities. So
good way to raise money.
All right. Well, you're putting the thought in my head now. So.
I mean, Whitney brought it up earlier, but I honestly can't imagine a better promotional YouTube channel for this game than you having Swery write down York's thoughts on movies and you reviewing those movies on YouTube. People would go nuts for that.
Just York reviewing York's movies.
Yes.
Ask Swery to write down his thoughts on, David Fincher and various directors. Then you just read them, and people will go nuts for it.
All right, I'll ask him what he thinks about that. He actually usually gets back to me fairly quickly, so I will check with him.
We got a lot of yes, I would watch that 100%. Oh, and Rely on Horror says York says cafefe. No. Oh man.
Yeah, we don't want York to get political. I think
Oh, God, no.
He was very careful to keep that out of the game.
Of course.
Yeah, even though he's FBI, he's not going to make any comments.
Right.
He's an FBI agent. He's not allowed to.
Well, I mean,
he's got to remain neutral.
Exactly.
He could, but he just wouldn't be a very good FBI agent.
Yeah, it would be a very different game too.
That's true.
Yeah. Love that.
Oh,
yeah.
Man. But yeah, you have really whetted our appetite. I
man.
know everyone who's on this stream is already desperate for this game, but the hints you have given us, and it's, I gotta say, a masterful piece of work. You gave us zero information.
I know.
You told us nothing, but you have made us desperate to play this thing.
Man, when is the next trailer coming out? Ugh.
So, I mean, I guess that is the one not a spoiler thing we can ask for inside information. You told us it was supposed to be announced early last year, and it got pushed back, didn't get announced for 5 more months. Do you have any inkling of when we might get, not even the release date, just like the next time we're going to have a news dump about when it is coming? Like,
no, I mean, the last that I heard was January.
Okay.
Ooh.
And so,
maybe we'll get a trailer.
Yeah, when they told me January, that's when they also said, okay, you can start telling people it's coming out.
Oh, wow.
I'd been like I said, I've been sitting on it for almost a year. And so I was just waiting for them to tell me. So they did finally send me something a couple of months ago saying, all right, it looks like it's coming out here, and here are some links. And so I just passed along, though, the same links that, Swery was sending. So there's no inside information that I have. Okay. I wish I did, though.
All right. Well, I'm sad we don't have a firm date yet, but we're going to be here counting the days.
Hopefully it's 2020 and we don't have to wait another year.
Oh no, I don't think it'll be that long. I mean, if they were saying January, it's getting pushed back. Now it's just like probably little details coming out. If something's pushed back 6 months, then that's a major thing. There's got to be some sort of technical problem that they're working on. But if it's just a month and they haven't given you the exact date, in January, I can only imagine that it's just a release thing that, the details tying up. The game I'm assuming is finished.
Watch them just not give us another trailer and just drop the game in January. I'm no, I need some more lead up time, you guys.
It would be just like they did with Terminator, where we had no idea there was a Terminator game, and then they told us it existed. 4 weeks later, you could buy a Terminator. Maybe they're going to pull that with Deadly Premonition. The new trailer comes out January 21st. The game comes out January 22nd.
Whitney's I need a week off of work. I'm sorry.
Well, I know there are things that, if you're a developer and you're working on the content and everything that, once it's turned over to the, the people that are going to be distributing it, then it's basically out of your hands. And so anything that's happening after that is just things going on with the distributor and, any issues that they're running into. So, but like I said, I don't have any inside knowledge. That's just what I imagine is happening, is that you reach a certain point where you've finished everything technically, and now it's all up to the company that's distributing the game.
Oh,
yeah, I can't.
I'll be interested in seeing if it sets a new record. So maybe it'll get an 11 out of 10 on one site and a -1 out of 0 on the other site. Can only hope.
Oh God.
I think it will be a big release. It just seems like the anticipation just online, hearing people's reactions to the trailers. This definitely has a lot of hype going into it, unlike the first game, which was sort of no one even knew it was coming out until it was out, and then it was like, oh, there's this weird game you should check out. But this one, everyone's like, we can't wait. It's all this big
Yeah,
lead up.
I suspect this game won't be as divisive as the first one was, simply because, I mean, for all of the drama that happened when the first game came out, we're 10 years on, and it has its status as an all-time classic, has this cult phenomenon. So,
right.
yeah, it's not going to be, people will know what to expect going in, and you're telling us they're going to get even more than they expect.
I think so. Like I said, it would have been a different experience. I didn't come out of this going, it's just York going off on another adventure.
Yeah.
He looked at this game very differently this time.
I hope it's not another gut punch. Oh, this game is really great. It's I love the bittersweet ending.
Yeah.
And I think it's so great how Swery is able to go from really funny, weird moments to soul-suckingly sad, makes you want to cry for days.
Yeah.
And the next moment. So I'm kind of expecting that with the sequel as well.
Yeah, I think he does that in different ways. So I think it's got all the things that you loved about the first game, and then just other things where like I said, how did you come up with this? It's so imaginative. Where did you even begin to think of what you thought up for this? So.
Oh wow.
Oh, I do have a question for you. Did you watch the season 3 of Twin Peaks?
I got like part of the way into it, and then see, that's the difficulty now, is there is so much content out there that I'm watching 10 things at once now, and I'm glad that we're in this golden age of content. It's amazing, but it also means that you can't watch everything that's there. It takes so much time to watch it. I'm still trying to finish Breaking Bad. Because people will go, "You didn't watch that?" And I went, "When? When could I watch it? I have to finish one thing and then start on something else." So.
Yeah, I wasn't too big of a fan of season 3. I was just wondering if you were enamored with it. A lot of my friends really loved season 3, but I was disappointed. But
well, it's hard to catch. I think there's a certain window that opens for catching the excitement of something, and the window can close. Especially if that much time goes by. People move on and people get older, and you get a whole new generation of people coming in, and think about how long ago it was that Twin Peaks came out.
Yeah, 26 years.
Yeah, that's a generation. So sometimes it works because there's a nostalgia thing and the people want to see what happens, but other times people have moved on and said, no, I'm at whatever it was about that series that got to me before, I'm a different person now because it's 26 years later and it doesn't strike me in the same way.
Well, I have a question for you just about the future of Deadly Premonition. Obviously, you have no information about Deadly Premonition 3, but with the huge success of Capcom with its Resident Evil remakes, a lot of companies going back and polishing up these old properties. If you got the chance, and this is a two-part question, if you got the chance, if Swery said, we're going to redo Deadly Premonition, we're going to pretty it up, we're going to give it the visuals it always deserved, we're going to fix the combat that everyone had such issues with, A, would you be interested in coming back and voicing the entire game again? And B, is there anything, from what you've seen of the game, is there anything you'd want to do differently in your performance if you did?
Oh, I would definitely go back, and do it again. Like I said, I enjoyed working with the people that were there in the studio and working with Swery. It would also be fun to go back now that he and I can communicate easier, to go back and take another look at it, and him being able to tell me directly certain things as opposed to, coming through a translator. I also
Okay.
think Swery would look at the game differently too. Remember, he's almost 10 years older now than he was when he wrote the first game. So if he's going
Right.
back in and looking at it, it's definitely going to be from a different perspective, as someone who's older now. So that part would be really interesting for me. Um, I don't know what I would do differently, because a lot of what happens in voice acting is just based on how it's molded. You have an idea in your head, but that's not really what the final product is going to be. You can suggest some things, but the director and the creator have an idea, and they have an image in their head. And so there are times when you'll be doing something, and a director or a game creator is there in the studio, and they're waiting for you to give them the voice that they're hearing in their head. And so you keep trying different things until they go, that's it. That's what I'm hearing. You're saying what I'm hearing in my head.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, given the experience, I understand I think I understand what you're saying, which is based on this more direct relationship you had with Swear in the second film. It would be film. Oh my God, I'm sorry. The second game, you would be excited to just try and really get in touch with his vision for the first one if you got a chance to do it again.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh. So, oh no, that was already asked. Hey, I don't see any more
Yes.
questions. Do you have anything you'd like to plug, Jeff, or speak more on?
Well, we talked about comedy sports a little bit, and that's for people that want to get into the game industry. It's just start playing around with voices, and there's so many ways for you to find content and be able to try and recreate it. And it's easy to create a podcast now, and microphones are pretty cheap, and the quality is actually really good. So play around with it, and try to come up with your own voices and create your own content too.
Yeah. I wish I could do voices. I just have my normal voice.
You can.
Okay.
You just got to experiment with it. You just have to, it's mainly just a matter of pushing your voice in a bunch of different directions and trying different things. I mean, everybody can do different voices.
I've always heard that the secret is not to be able to do different voices. It's can you repeat those different voices over and over again consistently?
Right. Well, and that's just practice, I mean,
Yeah.
you've got, you both have an impression that you do, right? It can be someone from your life, or, you probably do it in conversations where you say, so my friend or my mother said to me, and you're trying to do your mother's voice when you're talking. I mean, that's basically what this is.
Okay. And it's just, yeah, it's taking that initial thing that everybody does, that everyone can relate to, and saying, okay, well, I'm going to focus on this skill. I'm going to practice the skill, and I'm just going to commit to that skill. In the same way that everyone can toss someone a baseball, but if you're willing to work at it, you could be a pitcher.
Right. I mean, you just put in the time and the work, and then you just use what you're given, and like I said, I wish I had the bass of James Earl Jones in my voice. I would probably be working every single day if I had that just God-given voice. So
Right.
but everyone's unique and individual, and you just take what you have, take your instrument, and then just see what it's capable of doing, and try to go in a number of different directions. So, I mean, voice acting isn't for everyone, because not everyone enjoys the process.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I just enjoy the creative process of, you go into a booth by yourself and you're looking through glass. So it's like being in an aquarium, and you see somebody on the other side, and they say, try this, and you try it, and they say, try it this way. And you just go in a bunch of different directions, and until you give them what you think they want. And, it's not for everybody, because some people just feel like it's too much pressure to say, wait, you want it now? I can't do it now. I got to think. And for me, I enjoy that, being able to just go, let me try 8 different things in the next 10 minutes. And I'll keep trying different things until it's something that you seem interested in.
So the agent says, well, James Earl Jones probably can't do a York voice, so there's that.
I appreciate that.
And Papa D64 says, are there any other games you've done that you'd like to recommend people check out?
Let's see. There's well, this if you can get a Dreamcast, the Seaman game is there. It's funny because there are people that say, you did Seaman? Did you meet Leonard Nimoy? Because he's the narrator, or was the narrator of the game. But that's Leonard Nimoy did his part in L.A. and I did my part in the Bay Area. So I never met him. There was a game I did years and years ago called Space Channel 5.
Yes.
Space Channel 5?
Yeah, it was in Space Channel 5. And so Michael Jackson was in that game. But again, same thing. It was recorded. His part was recorded down in LA and mine was up in the Bay Area.
Fantastic experience, Space Channel 5.
Actually, I think I'm the first voice you hear in Space Channel 5.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We got a lot of excitement.
People are very psyched to be hearing that.
we got York is the voice of Seaman and Space Channel 5 is great. Yeah. Lots of excitement.
Yeah, and then I'm probably in every Armored Core game. I know I did at least 6 of them over the years because it was a popular game and they kept redoing it. So if you play it, I'm at least 2 or 3 voices in every Armored Core game.
Kari Warrior is like, I'd love to see From Software bring back Armored Core. a lot of Deadly Premonition cast was in Armored Core, apparently.
Yep. Yeah, like I said, we did a lot of these games together. It was a stable of actors that they used, and we did a lot of these games. And so, yeah, it was fun. You'd hear the game, you go, oh yeah, that's my buddy, Kevin, or that's my buddy Casey, that's Rebecca. I think it's only happened to me once that I was in a game and had a scene and they just decided in the very last scene of this game, they wanted to have all the actors together. And it was for a game. It was like a math game that was done by a company called The Learning Company. And so this was years ago and they were, they made all of these educational videos. Really huge for a long time. They made a game called Reader Rabbit, which was their biggest, game. And so this was it was an algebra game. And for whatever reason, they wanted in the final scene, they wanted everybody in studio. So I think there were about a half dozen of us that actually were in the studio at the same time. And they had 6 microphones set up and we, just did our lines together like it was a play. But that's really about the only time that it's ever happened where I've had other people in the studio with me. Generally, it's just you're doing your part by yourself, and it's very disconnected.
We got dude, I grew up with Reader Rabbit.
There you go. Well, I wasn't in Reader Rabbit, but it was the same. I was in a lot of
the same series.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah, the Learning Company had a ton of games. I just looked it up.
Yeah, they created a lot of content. That's
fantastic, and they're still doing it. Jump Smarter is a game that came out last year. Who would have guessed?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Oh wow. So, and I'm gonna pose that we've danced around this a couple of times and you've addressed it a couple of times. And I guess we just want you to hear to me probably, and I think some other people like to hear your answer to the big question, which is like you finished recording Deadly Premonition. Sorry, at the time Rainy Wood. Like you've done so many video games. And like you say, Armored Core is a beloved series, but like nothing is on the level of just this obsessive fan base. So you said you were blown away by the script and just had your socks knocked off by the ending. But did you think it was going to connect with people, or were you completely surprised by how it?
No, I was surprised because I've done a lot of games and there's no formula with video games where you can predict how people are going to react to it. You know, you could do a movie and it's a huge budget movie and you put certain stars in it and you can pretty much gauge how it's going to go over. But
Almost
with
cast.
yeah, with the the game community, it's such a personal thing. And I mean, like I said, look at the two reviews for Deadly Premonition. I
Yeah.
mean, it literally ran the gamut from this is up there with one of the best games ever to this is one of the worst games ever produced. And it's such a personal thing. People really look at these things differently. But interestingly, people are not as affected by the reviews as they might be for a movie,
Mhm.
because I think there's less control over it. If two or three major movie reviewers slam a movie, then odds are people aren't going to go and see it. But you saw with this one, sometimes someone will slam a movie and people will deliberately say, well, I'm going to play the game myself and make up
Yeah.
my own mind, my own opinion about it.
Well, the bad reviews is what kind of got a lot of people to try it. Like, why does this one person think it's the greatest game ever, and this other person it says it's straight trash? We got to check it
Yeah.
out for ourselves.
Yeah, well, and that's that's what I love about it. It's everybody has their own opinion about it. This was when you think about it, yeah, they worked for a major publication in the gaming world, but it was one person that said that they didn't personally like it. And think of all the reasons why they may not have liked it. If they played it a week later, maybe they would have loved it. Who knows what was going on in their lives and how they saw the game and what mood they were in when they played it and where they played it and what was going on in their life at that time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot about this game that kind of works against it. The combat, the driving. If someone's not having a good day, I can see them being like, you know what? This is just not for me right now.
Right. I think it's obviously it's going to be different this time because it has this built-in fan base that are ready and have been waiting for something like this for a long time. So I think a lot of people are going to approach the game this time with this sense of excitement that they can't wait to see what happens this time. Like I said, it's not just let's send York off on another mission. He really went at it differently. And he could have. I mean, he could have just said, you know what? There's a lot of people that love this game. All I got to do is just create another version of it with another adventure. And he could have, just done it in a half-assed way. And I'm sure it still would have sold very well. But I don't think that was enough for him. I think he really had to reimagine everything and, put the detail he did into this thing. And, that's something that I admire about him. He didn't just throw together another adventure for the character to go on.
No, that is, I've got to say, the trailer was a lot, but I think you've done 100 times more than the trailer to get people excited for this game.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And we cannot wait to get our hands on it. And I know this is presumptuous, but is there any chance you'd be willing to answer a few more questions once the game is out and we can actually talk about the spoilers?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
That is
All
fantastic.
right. Awesome.
As long as we're not ruining it for everybody else.
Oh.
Long after it's out.
All right, good.
Yeah. Oh wait, have you seen Spy Fiction? Swery's PS2 game?
No.
Oh, it's so bizarre. Kaysen and Lysander are both in it, but they are different character types. It's Swery's take on Metal Gear Solid. And
okay.
it's very, very weird. I streamed through it.
He made before Deadly Premonition, and it is pretty strange.
It's
Well,
very
that's
strange.
interesting that you talk about Metal Gear Solid because that's one of the guys that did that podcast with me about Deadly Premonition years ago. Was they said that character of York, people are putting it on the same level as the character in Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah,
and so that's interesting that there's that kind of crossover even in that game.
Well, what's funny is Metal Gear Solid 5 stole the whole smoking moving time forward from Deadly Premonition. At least that's what I like to think.
That's good that it
stop and you would have a
influenced things,
cig. Yeah, he'd stop and he would have a cigarette to spin the clock. Sure.
Excellent. Yeah, well, I'm really interested in hearing, what you think of the game when it comes out and what everyone else thinks as well. So, point me towards where I can go to see what people are thinking about it when it comes out.
We'll do.
Really interested in that.
We'll probably do
absolutely be in touch.
a big fat podcast about it when it comes out.
That'd be great. Well, I'm sure it's soon. So,
Yes.
like I said, I don't have any inside info on it, but I'll not be if it's not that much longer.
All right.
Okay.
I'm excited. It's closer than I thought, hopefully.
Yay. Oh, that's such a relief. So, yes, thank you so much for dropping by this game.
Yeah, this is so wonderful. You made my year.
Well, and
You
good luck
made her year with 3 days to spare.
Just in time.
Yes.
All right. Well, drink some coffee and
Yeah, I still have a long ways to go here.
you'll make it. I have faith in you.
Yeah, and I will. I'll make sure to send you the link once I get it up on my YouTube channel. But you got a lot of love here in the chat.
Well, thank you. It was great to talk to everyone, and like I said, I'm really interested in seeing how everybody likes the game.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see how you are in the sequel. I'm sure you're just as wonderful as you are in this game as well.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. So, any last minute questions, guys? No, it doesn't look like it. We may not finish in time. I will totally finish this game in the next 20 hours.
She's fine to beat the game. Don't worry.
Yeah, don't worry about that. I will beat the game.
How many times have you gone through it?
Me?
Well, I'm much less. I've gone through it 6 times.
No, I probably from about that many times, but I've done where I'd load it up and then do other stuff, and I put a lot of hours into this game.
See, I've just played the game. She has gone back and she has captured every line of audio in the entire game.
Wow.
So she has a time sunk into this game that so outstrips me by magnitude.
Oh, and we got people saying, please consider a Twitter account.
People want to see you on Twitter and they want York Morgan reviews movies. So spend some more time thinking about those options.
I will definitely talk to Swery about it.
And yeah, we'll send you all the good stuff. And if you're interested in seeing super fan reactions to shit, we'll send you links to our Deadly Premonition archives YouTube.
That'd be great.
All right, you have a good night. Thank you so much for coming on.
All right, take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye.